Welcome everyone to our second season finale of the Poets and Writers, and I welcome our host, George Wallace.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Walt Whitman Birthplace, for hosting the second series of Poets Building Bridges, a triangulation project that started a year ago. We did 5 events in 5 successive weekends in March of 2022, which was almost a chore because we had to invent the wheel every week. But this year we've had one host and fabulous host in the Walt Whitman Birthplace. So I thank the Birthplace for all the good work they do for poetry, including this fine project. As you know, people who follow this series, we bring together groups of poets from a couple of locations around the world to share their work with each other and learn a little bit about each other as a way to build community and between communities, so intra and inter-community building of relationships. So I encourage those of you who are participating today to learn something from each other and enjoy the experience and share your beautiful poetry with everybody in the ways that only you know how. So thank you for that. It's the finale for this season. I've got some ideas how to cook this up next year to make it a little bit new and innovative, but we've had a great series, and you can catch all of the shows that we've done over the past 2 years on YouTube through the Walt Whitman Birthplace's site. Plus I have a playlist of these shows, so I'll share that with everybody so that you can hear your own work by 4 or 5 days from now, and then refer back to the shows that have taken place over the past 2 years. And really, it is a worldwide phenomenon. In the second year, we've had 2 to 1, 2 American communities plus 1 international community. The previous one was 3 different international communities, so we changed it every time to see how it works. So I'm very, very pleased with this finale to welcome very fine poets from 3 different locations who I've had the privilege to work with over the years in various capacities. We have from England/Wales, we have Ian Griffiths, who's going to be presenting a few Welsh poets to us today. We have John Burroughs from Cleveland, who is going to be bringing us some Northern Ohio-based poets, mainly Cleveland, but I'm not sure South Euclid actually qualifies as Cleveland. I know Cleveland Heights does, but we'll find out about that from him. And we have Cervena Barva's own, where is she? Gloria Mindock over there, who is from Somerville, Massachusetts, and a wonderful community of poetry going on in Somerville in various capacities. But she has some of her poets from her press with us here today. So it's a great show, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ian Griffiths, who is he's got associations with South Wales and the Dylan Thomas Center in South Wales. He has associations with the Suffolk, England Poetry Society. Just last month, I read with him at the Lookout Tower, the South Lookout Tower of the Aldeburgh Lookout Tower, which is a beautiful location for poetry. So fine poet in his own right. Please welcome Ian Griffiths.
Hi, everybody. Well, it's a great privilege to be with you all again and to be invited. This is the second time that I've done one of these. So thank you, Walt Whitman Birthplace. Thank you, George Wallace, for all your commitment to this project, which has been going now for the last 6 months in preparation. And I've never prepared for anything in my life for 6 months before the event. I'm delighted to have with me today Rhian Edwards and Gillie Harries. We don't have 2 of the original poets who are shown as going to be here, Amanda Rackstraw and Sue Richardson. Amanda, unfortunately, wasn't well enough to take part today. But, well, without further ado, I'm going to take you back to Wales. I was born and grew up in Wales, in Swansea in particular, mostly. And of course, it was pretty inevitable Dylan Thomas would have quite an effect on me and my leanings towards poetry. So this first poem, I live in England now, as George says, in Suffolk, but we still go back regularly to Wales. And this first poem I'm going to read is a return journey to Wales and the places and people along the way. Come home to Wales. Come home with me to Wales. Before they built bridges, when the only way in and out was a tunnel to a foreign land, a land called England, the land where poplar trees stood tall and straight in rows, a land we went to once to feed the pigeons, a land of black and white houses with reeds for roofs, with gardens full of flowers, and tea was always bread and jam and scones. Come home with me now to the Wales I once knew, where our gods had names like Gareth Edwards, Barry John, who had a caravan next to ours at Llangenith, where children who learned tap danced on the tables, played in the dunes, but always watched out for mines. Come home with me now to Wales, where the River Taff, black as the sweat of miners, poured its anthracite stain into the Tiger Bay, and where every bus had a sign that forbade you from spitting. Come home with me now to my Wales, where men in turbans steered rollicking, rattling trams like dodgems through a sparking city, to Canton and the land of Bute beyond, to Castle Gardens, Pontcanna Fields, and where once I flew my balsa dart and dreamed it never would come down, to Llandaff with its cathedral, which I thought perhaps was England, or by paddle steamer to Penarth Pier, to another pier across the C6 Sea, where we bought rock and had our photos taken. Trust me now past the belch and stench of Margam by the sea, whose furnaces light the clouds, and no amount of Villingvole ale will quench the belly fires of its men. Take my hand and come with me now to Swansea, a theatre on terraced hills, and catch the sea perform its daily jig, a chorus line, a can-can, wave on wave of flouncing petticoats, twice daily, and no two shows the same. Listen closely now, and hear as only those with ancient souls can hear the ravens croaking from their sandstone crag, the high bell loft of Terrace Road School, where when I was 8, the bells had summoned me to stand in line, call out my name, state my presence in the land. Now they recall a time before the town crept up the wind-torn quarried slopes, before the first salt sails set anchor in its sheltered bay, before its copper fires lit up our eastern hills and charred them with their most unholy smoke, though the choirs still sang in chapels of a green and pleasant land. Fly with the ravens now out over the town, over Constitution Hill and Walter Road. Leave behind the smell of fish and chips and curry, the lawyers crying in their beer, the Sandfield guest rooms and the hymning sea. And see before you, as I both feel and see, stretching far beyond the Mumbles Pier, the outline of the Gower, lazy in its timeless beauty, a familiar lover whose secret places I must find again. Come find with me then, with a child's delight, a subterranean stream, and bubble up bedazzled within an emerald veil, an Eden garden, cloaked in wild garlic, fern and moss, of kingcups and of lady smock, and run with me by murmuring pill from St. Tylo's and my father's tombs down to the black pool pebbled bay. And there to gaze upon the standing stones, or needles as we knew them, ancient in our dreams, witnesses to lives which ebbed and flowed, new as the tides which daily filled the bay. Quarrymen and smugglers, fishers and toddlers, innkeepers, winkle pickers, starfish gazers, and the submarine that had lost its way. Whilst high above on the limestone cliff, amongst the ivy and the pigeons, someone has placed an Otis escalator car, a gleaming chariot of brass, mahogany and glass, a lift with vertigo, blind to its potential, without the means to rise or fall, now settled for a lesser dream, a room to grow tomatoes. You are home with me now, in our land of postcard castles, our towns and villages from Merthyr to Preseli by way of Bethlehem, the God-forsaken chapels and the tourist trails. Come home with me now to Wales. Come home with me now. Come home with me to Wales, to a land blessed by the dragon's tongue, but a land where dragons you will find none. Thank you. Now, in 2017, this is going the other way. This is a bridge across the pond when George invited me over, and I read at the Walt Whitman Birthplace. And George gave us a wonderful conducted tour and told us so many stories. They all merged in my mind and became confused and were misunderstood. So when I came to write something down, this is what emerged, and it's a tribute to George. When we were young, when you were young, there were bald eagles like you'd never believe, and blue jays at night parties told stories as dark as the forest, as tall as the trees, when mothers ran down to the sea to pluck their babes from the ice, just like they were pulling potatoes, and poison oak that made you dance, though you couldn't dance but had to, and natives who watched from the woods when you skinny dipped, where you shouldn't swim but felt obliged, and the ground just oozed with oyster blood. And old Walt just stroked his chin and sat taking it easy in his rocking chair, feeling the winds wag as it rushed from door to door in the house he should have lived in but didn't. And we wonder, where are the days and our buddies gone? The bare-chested men and the narrow-hipped girls in their polka-dot skirts, the crazy guy on the hill, October's sun on our backs, looking out east, the chowder shacks and the radio shack, real movie waitresses who strutted their stuff with lines like minestrone and sun-dried tomatoes, the waiters with Parmesan smiles and biceps that shone in the dark, with long cool beers in backroom bars, with the artists and poets who kept out of view, and all that time hoping, just hoping, that someone, just someone, will pass this way again and wish our Jack good day. Thank you. And so I'm now going to ask Gillie Harries, and she can say a few words about it herself. Gillie.
Hi, first of all, I'm just going to say, can you all hear me? Because my volume doesn't seem to be great. You can hear me, great. Well, thank you again to George, and great to see everybody. I am by birth a Suffolk, East Coast of England born woman, but my father and all my Welsh ancestors are from Pembrokeshire, and I carry a Welsh surname. So this first poem, and I'm just going to kick straight into this first poem and introduce this first and the second one. First poem actually was written last time I was in Wales, I think, and references the very place that Ian was describing in his first poem. And it's called Dragging My Heart in My Suitcase. I'm dragging my heart in my suitcase, thanking God for the invention of the little wheel and fortune of discovery. I'm dragging the stone too from this wave-cut platform of repose upon Poetrybay, the millions of eons taken to erode, smooth that limestone, to the perfection of humanity's idea of aorta and ventricle, a simple, steadfast Valentine. I search every beach, every possible place for a decent heft of a heart. This is it, lying in wait for me, lying in wait for me. I climbed the Bishopston Valley, crossing that brackish pool with the companionship of the man and woman that boy who swam to the distant rocks, swam them today in a poignant lone determination of push and lift of wave. The friends who search for that self-same art in life, a poetry of form we struggle to decipher, yet decipher. I wrapped my stony heart in Cleopatra's headpiece, hauled it to the London train, departed Swansea with sweet embraces and the promise of a future time to gather to the light. It sat steadily, silent, all through the green hills in the golden hour. The music of the valley voices, only I heard its muffled, sonorous ticking. Take me home, take me home. A kindly masked driver lifted the bulk unbidden, and finally, here, far from that crescent of perfection, the licking tides, the cuttlefish, skeleton, and seaweed, it graces my garden and stills my breath, with its memory of water's power to heal and to reshape us anew. And here it is. I love geography and geology, what geology does. The second poem is from my collection, Kneeling in Dust, which was published by Iwell Books, Carol and Ian again, and Carol Lawrence, Ian Griffith. And this second poem, sense of place is important in my poetry. This has bridges in it. The poem is in the voice of the sea, and it's prescient that, you know, you're suffering the effects of climate change there in North America. Here, it's been, you know, pushing to 30 degrees in the west of England. I'm in the city of Bristol. So this is the freedom of the sea in the voice of the sea. I'm an egalitarian, wash to all shores, embrace all customs, continents, and offer beauty. My reliable moon-drawn tides wash over, foam wash white, the detritus of nations. I'm relaxation and briny conviviality personified, and we do love to be beside the seaside, don't we? Don't we? We crawled from that elemental liminal space, formed of gills and scales, gasped the air transformed by light, scraped to survival, evolved, set gods and mythic sea creatures steadfast on those shores to save our souls. You turned landwards, foraged, pillaged, fished, plented, filled the creels, yet I will always have my due. Will persist under the moon's argent perigee, apogee to draw you closer. You built craft, bridges to span isthmus and estuary, as if one world was yours, as if to celebrate a oneness you came to despise. Now the freedom I once offered, all that bounteous plenty squandered once pellucid waters with waste, and on to the dreadful terminations of frail life, embarking, disembarking with hope, with hopeless to the shore. Then eons of time and tide will wash and drift before my gift of freedom will appease. Come to the shoreline then, kneel in the intertidal space, cast flowers of homage upon my wavelet forehead, make art from death. Make penance, fly a sea-bleached freedom flag, light beacons of welcome restitution, before it's all too late, before I take you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gillie. So now we can go over to Rhian. I'm looking forward very much to hearing Rhian's readings this afternoon. Rhian, are you with us there?
I'm with you, yes.
Great.
You. Thank you so much for inviting me and for having me. So the first poem I'm going to do is, I don't know if all of you have heard of the ancient Welsh fairy stories, which are called the Mabinogion, the Mabinogi. And my namesake, Rhiannon, is probably best known as the Queen of Horses, but she was also the Queen of Birds. And this poem is me drawing a parallel between our two lives. In my sort of belief, everyone who's an artist is from the fairy world. This is called The Birds of Rhiannon, and it goes like this. Before I was mortal, I was haloed in feathers, a trinity of familiars whose birdsong was legend, serenading the dead from their dreams, lullabying the living to torpor. For the sake of this world and him, I swallowed my companions, let them nest in my belly and take turns in my throat. The sparrow became my repartee, my grappling chatter that flutters away the dead air. The mockingbird staked claim as my mimicking tongue, parodying the world as it heard it, to be droll, to belong. And the thrush was poetry, my child song, my verse voice, the brittle thread to my blueprint life. For the sake of my now world and him, I crowded my belly with children, each deafened in utero by the never-ending twittering. My birds heckled my unformed sons for mirroring the man that caged them within this ungenerous flesh. My unborn tried walling their ears, even taking their leave before they were finished. My pets pecked and fought over what remained. But now that a girl is unfurling, the facsimile of me, they are familiar. They coo and brood over her, sing her to flower, while laying eggs of their own and her unspeakable tongue. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhian. That's fantastic.
Thank you. So I'm now going to have the audacity to do an American accent. I could imagine the American contingent are all inwardly groaning. So the biggest influence on my poetry and on me starting poetry was Dorothy Parker. So as a consequence, I tried to write poems in her voice. And so this poem is from my first collection by Chernin, Clueless Dogs. And I'm going to, so this is more predicated on Jennifer Jason Leigh's take on Dorothy Parker's voice from Dorothy Parker in The Vicious Circle, as opposed to Dorothy Parker's own. So this is called Penetrative Discourse, and it goes just like this. Tonight, my rhetoric is running on empty. Well, to be perfectly honest, it ain't running at all. Instead, it's nursing inebriate and candid remarks irresponsibly imparted the night before. Tonight, I'm all out of my intellect and my signature wit, yet you still hang on my every like chimps on a twig. I mean, look at you. On the edge of your seats, metaphoric, of course, impatiently awaiting some sardonic retort. I mean, what is this conversation to you anyway? Repartee tennis or a derisory blood sport? Feeling unindulged now, are we? Deflated by a distinct absence of eloquence. Well, I bid you adieu, my insignificant others, because I've done my hard time. I've completed my sentence.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Right, I should probably have a man dummy wrong poem to sort of follow that. I attribute all my man dummy wrong poems to Dorothy Parker, frankly, and there's plenty bloody of them. Right then, okay. Actually, yes. This poem is called He is the Kind, and this is from my most recent collection, The Estate Agent's Daughter, also by Saren. It would be the real estate's daughter, I suppose, in America. The real estate agent's daughter. This is called He is the Kind. He is the kind of man who clicks his fingers at the radio, discards his tea bags on my draining board, despite my navigation to the compost bin. He's the kind of man who wears nothing in the morning except an unruly cardigan, quotes Winnicott while stirring honey into his porridge. He's the kind of man who makes a beeline for my bookcase and wears his silent reading like an invisibility cloak. He is the kind of man who is languid in his crumbling Audi, sheds his seatbelt like my bra strap when compelled to reverse. He is the kind of man who brings 2 mugs of tea to bed in the morning, both of which are for himself. He is the kind of man who eats only half a banana, bandaging the needless remainder in the blackening of its skin. So those are the things, that the habits of his that irritated me. And, but I also irritated him in equal measure. This is called My Clocks Pester Him. I'm one of these people, probably because I have a small child, I have a clock in every single room of my house. I'm entirely governed by time. But it drove him to distraction. My clocks pester him, also from the estate agent's daughter. He gagged the alarm clock, buried her alive in the knicker drawer. He unhung the faux French war clock and smothered her ticks in the dirty laundry. He made himself at home by dislodging their batteries, pausing their panicked hands mid-air, leaving them dumb, heartless. Did he have to dig out the tongue of the innocuous carriage clock, the letter opener lying by her side like a murder weapon? She never sung another note. And what became of the novelty bird clock with 12 species of tweet? How did she meet her untimely demise to never again chirp on the hour? How I miss my metronomic circus, the unsynchronized pulse of my rooms, my ornamental pets Morse coding one another across the gulf of the hallway. In this loveless silence, this paralysis of time, I tap my impatient soul, talk my bitten tongue, percussing the hourglass of our untouching hands. Thank you very much for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rhian. That was wonderful.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. So, George, back to you, sir.
Ian, is Amanda Rackstraw one of your people?
Yes, she is. Yes.
Here.
Yes, she's joined us to listen, or to hear, I believe. I can see her name has come up.
All right. Okay. All right. So we'll see if we have time at the end. We can possibly patch her if she's not liking to do that. So thank you all from Wales and South Wales and Suffolk, England, and Bristol, I think. Chili's in Bristol. I'll never forget, and I recommend to anybody from the States visiting the UK to get outside of London. When you get to Heathrow, rent a car, drive in the other direction. You get there in the morning and you can pass Stonehenge and Salisbury Plain, and head sort of northwest, across the Severn Bridge, one of the most beautiful bridges in the world, after the Kosciuszko Bridge, which is even more beautiful, the same design, and get to Dylan Thomas country, South Wales. North Wales also has plenty to recommend. And of course, the great poetry of the Welsh people is represented today. Thank you all from Wales for today. Thanks again. Next up, we have with us John Burroughs from Cleveland, who's at the moment, he's in a small town in Kentucky on the Ohio River, I think it is, visiting with the Panda Fest. John and I go back to 2009, as he reminded me today, when we did a I think it was a D.A. Levy Fest, and or maybe it was a Kenneth Rexroth Festival. I'm not sure. Kenneth Patchett Festival in Cleveland, and we've been friends for many years. He's the editor of Jesus, the Crisis Chronicles. Jesus Crisis Chronicles. That's exactly what it is. And most recently, he was named the National Poet Laureate of the Beat National Beat Poetry Foundation. So he's represented the beat poetry movement and the neo-beat poetry movement very well in the past few months. Representing Cleveland today, my friend John Burroughs.
Thank you so much, George, and thank you to the Walt Whitman Birthplace. It's a privilege and delight to be here. I so enjoyed hearing Ian and Gillie and Rhian, and I'm looking forward to the Cervena Barva poets as well. Cleveland has a rich history of poetry, you know, going way back, Hart Crane, Langston Hughes, but currently it's a very vibrant, rich scene, well over 100 great poets in Cleveland. And so it was very hard to select 3 for this event. But these 3 are among the best poets in the nation, I think, very dear friends and good people, and I'm thrilled to bring them to you today. First off, we're going to have, we'll have Doc Janning, who was the 80-year-old inaugural poet laureate of the city of South Euclid, Ohio. That's a suburb of Cleveland. He's created ekphrastic poetry for Heights Arts and Cleveland Photo Fest, moderated First Wednesday Poets. He's done so many different things, and please welcome Doc Janning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. This morning I was in Tokyo reading poetry, so I'm all over the place. I'll begin with Earth Song, Summerlude. Rushing waters, cool sparkle of air, soft rustle of leaves on silken hillsides of green, and light dappled wind shadow neath slow dance of cloud-striated sky. Cantabile susurration of slow golden breeze and ancient ageless arc of sun, immeasurable dimensions of time, each day scented with unique essence. Blue-gray stone speaks in numinous silent whisper and articulate sacred tone of earth and nature, of ancient born, of eldritch magic and birth among the stars. Hints of distant music, siren summons of seas and age-old calls of birds, echo in plangent call of a jay, elegance arriving on wings of blue. All breathed from Gaia's heart midst sacred memories of horror-rhymed past and unknown future. Within translated feelings and moments, thoughts well of the impossible becoming, half-conscious dulcet dreams of the possible coalescing into phantasms. Memories of memories cross pathways of longing, woven of sensuous sunlight and velvet shadow. Ethereal looms of time stretching, uncharted, to the other side of the stars, to vanish into the immense silence of infinity. I travel through myself to find me, and words become worlds of light as I become who this place, this moment says I am. Lately, I've been getting into surreal poetry, and this is one of them. Dream Quest. On a dream quest of becoming a pilgrimage of awakening. I stravage the timeless and trackless with the soft, sensuous tread of discovery. I travel through other worlds and other natures in sacred synergy of peace and clouds of being. I walk amid towering templed trees of primeval forests and secret lands of a forgotten forever. I taste the infinite intimacy in shifting shapes of shadows, fecund with silence in the maelstrom of existence. And time dreams in songs of eons, eras and ages in starless descant of time. Then the then the bark of life sails across endless Mangata on seas of yesterday, today, and infinite tomorrow, carrying me in dreams of forever into the impossible, unbearable beauty of a new dawn. And let me finish with Journey. This one is brand new. Wandering in moments through the mists of infinity, a sacred journey in the dream time of us, a journey of mysteries in the forever beyond forever, a journey of discovery in the gardens of love and life, in the somewhere and somewhen, on the far side of the gates of memories. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Lovely, lovely work. Wow. Next up is a poet who's very dear to me. I mean, she's so dear to me, she's in the bed next to me. Because this is the only room in our Airbnb where the internet works well. But Shelley Chernin is an environmental activist, ukulele enthusiast, who's been writing poetry off and on most of her life. She's the author of The Vigil, which I had the pleasure of publishing through my Crisis Chronicles Press. And let me give you Shelley Chernin.
Okay, good. We're just playing around. You're going to have to turn the sound off on your computer, John, because it's echoing back. Thank you. Okay. I wanted to start with a poem that's about my Cleveland roots, since I think what I've enjoyed so much listening to are people's poetry about place, about where they live, where they grew up. That's one of the really lovely things about this series. So I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. I have lived other places in my life, but I've been back in Cleveland since 1988. By choice. I work from home. I could work from anywhere, but I love the Cleveland area. Cleveland is an industrial city, or certainly was when I was young. There are far fewer factories. There was steel industry there when I was growing up. That's completely gone now. And there is a river that runs through Cleveland. Cleveland is on the shores of Lake Erie, and the river that runs through it is called the Cuyahoga River. The Cuyahoga River was very famous worldwide in the 1970s because it was regularly catching fire. It was so polluted from the steel industry and from all the other factories along the river that the river would catch fire. And in fact, because of what happened in the Cuyahoga River, the United States government enacted some laws that required cleaning up of waterways, and the Cuyahoga is much cleaner now. And this poem is about that. It's called Progress.
In the days of near beer, oh gosh, near beer. So that's a United States thing from back when. It's very, very weak beer that we were allowed to drink back when I was young. If you were between the age of 18 and 21, all you could buy was near beer. In the days of near beer, before I was 21, my boyfriend and I drove down to Cleveland's Flats one summer night to drink. Sat on a splintery wooden deck under a rusty bridge, dangling bare feet toward the fishless Cuyahoga River, smoking Marlboros. We tossed lit matches into oil-painted water, hoping to light a fire. Since the river's close brush with death, I hear that fish caught in the Cuyahoga are safe to eat. 44 species at last count, catfish and brown bullhead, ready to be lured and hooked, grilled over hickory chips. Silver-haired now, I sit in a comfortable chair at Collision Bend Brewery, sip my Pollard pull porter, watch a pushboat navigate a cargo barge through a crooked river. Thank you. Okay, I have another poem that references Cleveland locations, a lot of all the street names in here, the buses mentioned, our Playhouse Square, which is our big theater district downtown. This poem is called How to Choose Sides in a Circular Argument. You will not know where you are, therefore you will be lost. Cling to the street sign at the corner of Chagrin and Avalon while you orbit the premises. Think of King Arthur, whose sword was forged where he would die. You will hear hammers panging out fabrications. Ignore their false rings. As you revolve, seasons will change. Bring fur and assumptions. If you forget them, you are near Sam's fashion post. No need to feel cold or flustery. Be ready for propositions. Guinevere accepted Lancelot's and Mordred's. This, either true or false. The subject is Guinevere, but knights and villains are subjects too. Ponder the hidden predicate, and if it is unsatisfiable, revalue the variables. Take the number 14 bus to East 14th and Prospect. It's a short walk to Playhouse Square. Catch the matinee. Near its conclusion, Guinevere will sing, I loved you once in silence. You will not be far from where you were before, and therefore you will not know where you are. Thank you. I have one more for you. Inspired by dear Yoko Ono. Just a story. I didn't break up the Beatles. If I'd never said breathe, never let John pound imaginary nails, never constructed the white ladder to magnification, if every what if never was, one would still be four, not four parts of the one. I'm not guilty. I didn't break up the Beatles. Believe me, I did not insert myself nor inflate. Nothing was permanent. We sat. Half the world sat in the studio, always dying, you know, making up music in their minds. It wasn't me, ended the applause. Not me. I was mother, looking for my hand in the snow. My love and I, we had no hands, couldn't grasp the band, specks of dust. We floated amongst the trillion stars, dreamed each other. I'll give you some truth now. I'm a witch. I'm a bitch. I don't care what you say. I won't paint my face and dance for you. Won't hide until everyone dies. No, no, no. Listen, the snow is falling. We were only people. I didn't break up the Beatles. They drifted. John and I watched the wind. Two different things altogether. Now, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shelley. Fantastic, as always. Wow. All right. Next up, another, of course, poet who's very dear to me. Christine Howey is a performance poet, stage actor, director, playwright, theater critic, former executive director of Literary Cleveland, and former poet laureate of Cleveland Heights. Her one-person play about her transgender journey, Exact Change, consists of 40 poems and has been an official selection of the 2015 New York International Fringe Festival. The film was then adapted into a film. Please welcome Christine Howey.
Thank you, John. I'm unmuted, yes. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks to John, thanks George. I'm going to share 4 short poems with you today. Just going to read them one after the other. 2 of them were published by John's Crisis Chronicles Press, so proud of that. So, Sign of the Cross. When I'm 6 years old, I go to Sunday school every week. And one Sunday morning, I have an epiphany. My family walks 1 block up Scarborough Road to the busy thoroughfare where our street intersects with Coventry Road and Fairmount Boulevard in Cleveland Heights. Then we cross the street and go to Fairmount Presbyterian Church, right there on the opposite corner. On this trek, I hold my dad's hand. I see a sign by the crosswalk. It has 3 words on it, and I can read the last 2. Cross here. But the first word is long and it tires me out to look at it. But I do notice that it starts with a P and ends with R-I-A-N, like the name of our church. And so I come to the conclusion that the sign says, Presbyterians cross here. This thought percolates for a bit and I begin to feel powerful as a 6-year-old can feel. It appears our religion owns this crosswalk. And as I walk on other streets with my parents, it seems we've taken over many of the other crosswalks in our neighborhood. I begin to look with new admiration at the adults who run our church. And I wonder where other people cross the street. Like the Catholics who go to St. Anne's Church down the way. I figure they must have to dart through traffic to get from one side to the other. And being 6, this does not seem too harsh a penalty. After all, I imagined we'd won these crosswalks, fair and square. I knew we had an army since we sang about our Christian soldiers almost every Sunday. The crosswalks were ours now, so too bad for them. I was a Presbyterian, king of the crosswalks. And I imagined glorious future victories when we might even take over the sidewalks themselves. Of course, I eventually came to realize that the first word on those signs did not say Presbyterians. It was a profoundly deflating moment for me, and I've questioned the authority of signs and religion ever since. Thank you. Blueberries. Summer 1944. Amusing the theatrical dismay of the young woman, 5th from the left in the black and white photo. Having finished her blueberries, she pretends to weep piteously as she and her co-workers, perched on the rail of a deck in the woods, giggle and gaily invert their empty bowls alongside her. The lone gentleman in the row of ladies does the same, staring into the camera, a second before an embarrassed smile. there had been ripe blueberries in those white bowls. All the women in identical dark pleated skirts and light colored blouses. A military auxiliary. 11 females who handle office chores. Outside for a treat from the boss. Time to go back to their desks, out of the warm sun, and return to their tasks. Coding, suitcases, valises, filing, shoes, brogans, pumps, spectacles, one silver wire rim, round lens, right crack, listing prostheses, one left leg over knee, pristine. Baby clothes. Logging the dead and tattoo numbers of the labor assets. Later, one of the women will complain at home on the patio over a glass of Riesling in the soft summer darkness. Honestly, it never stops. Beowulf at breakfast. Hey, babe, your eggs are ready. Honey, how'd you sleep? Too sore the anguish. Ettins and elves and evil spirits, the most baneful of burdens and bales of the night. Another bad dream. Listen, I told you dragging the ram into bed with us was not a good idea. You want raisin toast? A hot surge waiting, a furious flame. Don't be silly, the eggs are just a little warm. What's on tap for today, hon? A scathing monster, dark, ill-doer. Just stop. You know, I'm so tired of this whole Grendel thing. To begin with, you're never satisfied how I burnish your shield. Harness gray and helmet grim, spears in multitude. Yes, all of it. I'm just too much for me to get ready. You see any other guys in the neighborhood going to work with a helmet, a shield, and spears? It's the 5th century, for God's sake. Plus, I don't have time. Sheila's coming over later, and I have to bake my vole casserole. With gripe alone, I must front the fiend and fight for life, foe against foe. And you remember what Dr. Smith told you, that you're becoming a touch obsessive. My blood-covered body he'll bear as prey, ruthless, defile, devour, and destroy. And a tad morbid, if you take my meaning. You know, the doc thinks all this alliteration is some sort of a Tourette's thing. Did you answer me about the toast? If death must take me, as my lifeblood reddens his lair in the fen, no further for me needs food prepare. A simple no thanks would have sufficed. Have a nice day, sweetie, and take the trash bag to the curb on your way out, okay? The gory sark, the gilded swine-crest boar. I heard that. And lastly, every morning I kill 10,000 angels. I don't mean to, but they're everywhere. I crush a couple as I roll over in bed, then a few more expire as I set down my cereal bowl. Scores are drowned in the shower and a couple dozen strangled in my shoelaces. And once I'm on the internet, they course over the cliff edge by the hundreds, plummet and are crushed despite their wings. I don't blame myself exactly, but still, I wish I had never had the thought that every second is another angel. One more blessed chance to get something right, or to find one thread of thought, original or not, and spin it into something unexpected. It seemed a pleasant conceit at the time, but now it only leaves me with carnage, remnants of white fluff everywhere. And I haven't even told you yet about the afternoons. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. I had the privilege of publishing 2 of her books recently, Citizen of Metropolis, and I have a poem about that. So if you want to check those out, they're at crisischronicles.com. And also Shelley I've published a chapbook for, which is available there as well. Thank you all so much for listening to this Taste of Cleveland. and I'm looking forward to what comes next. Back to you, George.
John, you could hit us up with a poem?
Oh, well, okay. I'll give you a little something. This one's entitled Odd Missive. Dear whomever it may concern, I have always felt upside down or downside up, like an hourglass or a cup tumbling down a mountain of valleys, like an alley full of endless avenues and dead-end streets, like a meet-up nobody comes to, or a voice recorder in a landfill. I have always felt like a #1 Diana Ross song on my 14th birthday, upside down, but also sometimes her subsequent single, I'm Coming Out. I have always felt outside in and insight out, but never insight in unless I'm mistaken, or outside out unless my heart was breaking and I could no longer bear the indoors. I have always felt like a rooftop floor or a basement ceiling, like a numb feeling or the unreeling business of a word-proof letter, like an ungotten go-getter, a colander filled with holy water, like an arid pants wetter, a desert detour, an albino Moor, the kind of hello who is talking to himself again, to whomever it may concern, even when it concerns only him, or not even. How odd. Sincerely, Miss Civ.
And that was John Burroughs leading his group of friends from Cleveland with us today. Thank you, John, for that. Cleveland, Ohio, the only place where poets can go bowling at Mahal's, and in cold weather, you can hear the bowling pins snap. It's really a really strange, wonderful environment in Cleveland. Yes, I was down there at the Cuyahoga River to see if it still burns. There were fish jumping out of the water. There were kayaks in the water. And down there at Hart Crane Park, which is all steel quotations of Hart Cranes, you can experience the Hart Crane phenomenon. And of course, numerous locations around Cleveland for poetry these days. Thank you for bringing the Cleveland spirit to us today on this Zoom session. Just give a quick shout out to some of our visitors. We have a lot of people from New York, Mark Donnelly and Bruce Johnson and Cindy Hockman, Francine Wood, Bob Heyman. We have Chuck Joy, who was a host for people from Erie, Pennsylvania a while back. Welcome back, Chuck. Mark Donnelly from New York, but I think Mark's living in California these days. Right, I see. I thought I saw Jennifer Brown, who's in Frostburg. Where's Jennifer? There she is. Jennifer's in Frostburg. I don't know if she knows Jerry LaFemina, but a very talented New York, also Frostburg, Maryland poet. So there's the connection there. And joining us late from Suffolk, England, is the one and only Gordon Hoyle. So thanks for joining us today, Gordon. So we've got a very nice crowd with us today listening in, and three groups of different locations. We'll turn to our third group. Bang, with 12:59, we have just over half an hour for the third group, and then we will have an opportunity to bring Amanda Rackstraw in at the conclusion. So stick around, Amanda, and we'll hear from you as well. I'll introduce to you now the third group. You know, and I was just looking to see if I was muted. I don't know if anybody heard that. Yeah, I'm not muted. The third group that's with us today, and you know, I never looked things up, so I thought it was Cervena Barva Press for the longest time. I never heard Gloria say the name of her press, so I just figured it was Cervena Barva Press. But then when I checked out the YouTube video of our Zoom session, the Capelli al Vento project, which she hosted the other day on behalf of the folks in Italy, they pronounced it Cervena Barva Press. So then I decided I should probably look it up. So I just did look it up. And it's Cervena. Cervena is like a wild animal that's cultivated, that's raised on a farm. And Barva, I think, is the blood of a wild animal, which is a tremendously interesting title and may not be the meaning of it at all, but I love it as that. Gloria's been with us all the way back to 2022 when we did our New York City from the Inside anthology reading, because she has New York City connections, even though she's in Somerville, Mass. And like I said, she publishes many very, very fine poets, not just regionally, but from across the country and internationally from her press in Somerville, Massachusetts. She's brought a couple of those people with her today. Please welcome Gloria Mindock.
Hi, thank you so much. And I really appreciate being a part of this, George. And thank you to the Walt Whitman Birthplace. I have two readers to introduce to you this afternoon, Flavia Cosma and Andrey Gritsman. They both mean a lot to me. They're very special. They're a part of the press. Flavia Cosma is the international editor of Cervena, and Andrey Gritsman is a contributing editor to the press. They both have numerous books out, awards between them. Flavia runs the International Writing Festival in Val-David, Canada, and she does this twice a year. Andrey runs the Intercultural Reading Series in New York City. So they both are very established, and I have published them both quite a bit. So it's a real honor to have them be a part of this too. And so our first reader will be Flavia Cosma.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me here. It's a pleasure and an honor. And speaking of the festivals at Val-David, everybody is invited. Just give me a sign and we'll arrange your participation if you want. I'll start with a poem called Emigration. Just as sparrows wallowing in the dust of the road and falling asleep drowsy afterwards under the calm light of autumn, the man stretched out on the pavement, exiled somewhere in America, lies wrapped up in a dirty sleeping bag, trying to catch some rest in the gap between the sun and the concrete. Deep wrinkles furrow his mature face, his large hands, accustomed with working, clasp at his chest, a thick, ragged coat. In his weak mind, he keeps repeating over and over, as in a demented prayer, the hope that tomorrow he'll find what he's searching for. Here, on this foreign sidewalk, amid the shining and glassy high rises of the metropolis, with the dream about a new life crumpled at his feet. answers. The night gets covered with whirlwinds of stars. You would have liked this, Vincent van Gogh. We know all the answers before inquiring. Heavy, the moon appears between the pine trees. Troubled, the sad drunk starts yelling and loses his mind. People rush themselves, stand in line to consult psychologists, psychiatrists, mediators, shamans, gurus, healers, avoiding with great care the one who is bleeding on the cross for our sins, for all the poems we chased away from ourselves or refuse to write. Since all the burdens lead sooner or later to the non-existence, our sole achievement, our great success in life is to deceive time. Impossible summer, leavening the air draws silk. It smells like the city has moved to the shore of a lake. Magic. Gulls with ruffled feathers fall to sleep on hot asphalt. A heavy miasma brutally sweeps us to other continents, other coasts. In our mind's eyes, we see murky lakes, dark epidermis breathing desires, soft blue and orange skies, heart-breaking sadness, vast plains. A bridge spanning the world. This alien love consumes me wildly with its boundless absence. Solitude. I could have copied the thousands of sentences wisely conceived, written, or uttered throughout history. I could nourish myself on the sap of millions of flowers, carefully painted or sculpted in the gardens of Eden. But I want to inscribe on the black page granted me thoughts untouched by stellar dust, whispers dreamed only by myself, distinct, important days, morning solely mine on the calendar. I want to be alone in the blue shade of the storm, under ever-traveling skies, with my bare soles to caress the heads of saints sleeping in prayer, who sometimes through earth and air will breathe strength a sweet and gentle breeze from their minds into my savage blood. Thank you.
And Andrey Gritsman is next.
Yes, hi. I'm really honored now to be part of this series. Haven't heard such strong poetry for quite a long time, and very much appreciate Gloria and Flavia running this readings and festivals. Gloria is our guardian angel, Cervena Barva Press, and United States East Coast. Okay, my background is I'm from Moscow, Russia, many, many years ago. So Russian American, so I write in English and in Russian. These 3 poems I'm going to read are from forthcoming collection. And this is somehow related to my history of immigration. It's called, this first poem called Marfa Lights. Marfa is actually a small town in Texas with a strange history of some mysterious lights flickering above this town. Sad lights of Texas small towns, flickering souls of killed horsemen on endless, rootless prairie leading nowhere. No man's land, black underground blood, Texas towns, Marfa, Moscow, Odessa, wild lights of distant names flown from space as seeds to the empty field. I saw this flying 80 miles per hour on the road to nowhere from nowhere. Then planet Houston lit up on the horizon. Wandering lights marked my back. And then later that night, in my dream, my father called. I have not seen him for 7 Soviet years after my departure. As I woke up, my father actually called. And after all those years, I heard my own voice. And he realized that was me, his only son, born right after the war. I have carried away this wandering light flickering between my scapula. And I'm wondering what would happen with that light when I am no more. Second poem is called Suburban Happiness or Suburban Paradise. God, I'd like to start all over again. Get settled in the suburban home, surrounded by magnolias and rickety fence, take out trash on Wednesdays, recycling on Thursdays, coming home on time, tell you about day's events, take off my tie, looking carnivorously at your turkey cutlets, smoke quietly, watching as you go meticulously through day's mail. Watch my TV series half-heartedly. By midnight, go to bed, read some of Kafka's diaries, look through last New Yorker poems that remind me of boat frames on the banks of dried-out lakes. To feel the happiness of this inhabited island in the ocean of life. Wait for the moment of your light, feminine sleep, floating further and further from me to the shores of your girlhood. Then seize the moment, get out of bed, break out soundlessly, the door of our refuge, jump outside and run where the eyes look, passing somebody else's phosphorescent windows, leaving shreds of my skin on the branches, reach wet ravine on the outskirts where fire is still smoldering, smoke of some tree unknown to me. Find that spot where I once hit something I can't find. Notice the light shadow of her figure vanishing into darkness. And the last one called Lockdown, somehow related to the COVID lockdowns. Rainy season lingers and lingers, fences all wet. Out of town shops, warehouses, barns all gray and damp, gas stations sullen. Long freight trains still and merged into landscape, as well as the railway barrier. We locked in our cars, fall into deep sleep. Who knows when the city is open again? There probably nobody's laughing or crying, just waiting for the second coming, which is not happening. This season lingers for 3 generations. All is wet and damp, churches, prisons, and hamlets. Nobody knows when is the wake-up call. That's how we live now. Everyone is his own savior. And still we see the mirage on the horizon. There, far away, in the vanishing light, one can discern Kinneret on the contour map. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrey and Flavia. And I'd like to share just a few poems with you. And these poems are from my forthcoming book called Grief Touched the Black Sky at Night. And it's about the war in Ukraine. The first poem is called The Faucet. The faucet is dripping. I cup my hand to drink a few drops. It is not enough. My throat is dry, and the distance between dry and wet is enormous. How many times I have taken advantage of thinking things will always be okay. In the next room, a family hides like me. When are we ever safe? My mouth is stuffed with death, waiting for the blast. With regret, I open the window for air, but only smoke seeps in. I can't breathe. This is my final thought until tomorrow. I will try again to drink from the few things life still offers. My sister and I, we always wanted to go to Ukraine and to hear the bells and the many churches there. And of course, that will never happen now. Most of the places that we wanted to go to are destroyed. This poem is called Bells of Kiev. The churches are empty, half standing, no bells to ring. And the wreckage lays a cross no one has touched. Jesus lays there, broken. Is there a meaning to this? Will he rise again in this country? Someone will pick him up, carry him in their arms, kiss the cross he is on. Everyone needs to be protected, to be loved. Someone else will find his hand. No nails binding the freedom we all need. And I'll close with a poem called Bandages. And I was watching 60 Minutes, and they had 2 prisoners of war that were women on the show. So this poem was inspired by hearing them talk, and they both fought in the war. Bandages. In a Russian prison, she could hear the cries of Ukrainian men being raped. She was pregnant. Her husband did not know. All she wanted was her baby to be born in Ukraine, speaking to her stomach, urging, "Wait, little one." In a prisoner exchange, her baby was born in Ukraine. Another woman, so brutalized, she was not sure she would live, yet she's ready to fight again. Still, she did not want to leave home. Bombed out shell, dried blood in the dirt, wreckage like abstract art. A boot in the road filled with flowers, someone mourning a life, mourning their life. In some villages, every heart stopped beating at once. Can a village survive supported by the beating hearts of only two? Yet the women carry on in the footprints stretched out before them, walking the same path, breathing a different story for a free Ukraine. Thank you very much.
And that was Gloria Mindock and her friend. Cervena. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll turn this back over to Ian for one moment so that he can introduce Amanda Rackstraw, who was initially one of the readers from Wales. We are at 1 hour and 20 minutes, so we're doing very well in terms of time. And if you can give your full attention to this last portion, we'll hear from Amanda. And then I'll say a few final words. Ian, to you.
First of all, can you hear me?
Putting it on the spot. Ian, you're going to introduce Amanda for us, please.
So, yes, I'm delighted to introduce Amanda. We were not expecting her to be able to read today, but if she can, that's absolutely wonderful. I first came across Amanda in South Wales at the Dylan Thomas Birthplace, actually, reading one of, or in fact, storytelling, not reading at all, telling one of her wonderful stories. So, Amanda, have you something there you can read for us?
Possibly, but I'm more worried about technology. First of all, can you hear me?
Yeah, the sound isn't terribly good. It's a bit intermittent here.
Click on it, unmute.
Okay, try again.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Right. Yes?
Yes. Yes, we
Yes.
can.
No.
Yes. Good. Let's try.
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
you tell me. I'm more worried about the technology than if I can't be heard. Do tell me. I did a reading through, and when I looked up, and
Yeah.
and I can do. I'm a bit. I haven't done a reading of stuff of late. And I'm sorry about all the indecision. I had a day yesterday, and no, but today I think I got a big.
I'm sorry, but
Unfortunately, Amanda, the sound.
Yeah, I have to say.
I'm afraid the sound is really breaking up so badly that we just can't hear you at this end.
That's what I was afraid of. That's
Yes.
what I was afraid of.
In that case,
I don't think I can do much about.
Yeah. Well, Amanda, we'll just have to have you on next year. We'll just have to have you on next year.
Well, let's hope so.
Right.
I hope so.
Okay. So with regrets, we'll let you sort that out for next year. Ian, thank you for giving it a try. Okay. Amanda, thank you for giving it a try. All of you who've joined us every month for the past 10 months to listen or to participate in this this series, Poets Building Bridges through the Walt Whitman Birthplace. I want to thank you all for being with us in that steadfast way, month after month. This is the conclusion of our second season, which you'll be able to see as part of the YouTube playlist, which will be up on YouTube in 2 or 3 days. We do have a good listenership through YouTube. So when it does come online, please recommend it to your friends so they can hear you. There'll be time demarcation, so you can revel in the glory of your moment in the show, each of you, and then listen to other people as well. As an hour-and-a-half show, it's really a very efficient show. I want to once again thank the Walt Whitman Birthplace for supporting me in this endeavor to triangulate communities across the world. And we've done this 2 years now, and I'm already making plans for 2024 and hope to see many of you participating and listening in when that occurs in 2024. Until then, I'd like to thank you all for being friends in poetry, speak with each other, extend our family of poets as best you can, as I'm trying to from here in my cockpit here in Huntington, New York. With that, I will turn it back over to Bonnie at the Walt Whitman Birthplace for any final words. Bonnie, on to you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. This has been wonderful. This is my first time being on the Zoom with you, with the poets, and I'm so excited to hear all of your wonderful words. Thank you so much, and we hope that you join us next year.